What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. Thanks for joining us here for Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm Howard Bender. By my side here, none other than Britt Flynn. You can follow the Twitter handles that we got going on right below us here. And we appreciate you guys tuning in. Happy 4th of July, everybody. And Britt, happy 4th of July to you. How is it, aside from the fact that you and I are a bunch of working stiffs here on a holiday?
It's good. It's fantasy football. I'm doing what I love. I'm talking football. I'm hanging out with friends, and except for the fact that the hot dog contest got canceled. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts. Other than that, it's
Do
been
you want to
really
lie on
good.
you want to lie on the therapist couch here for a moment here and take a few and I mean, it's a safety issue, obviously, with the lightning storm going on. So
No, it is. I just was really looking forward to the fact that I got to bet on the hot dog contest because it's the first 4th of July that betting has been legal in Arkansas. And my degenerate self really wanted to bet on the hot dog eating contest.
why? What did you, I got to know what your bet was. What was your bet?
It was plus 200 odds for the world record to be broken, which was 73 hot dogs.
And when was the 73 hot dogs? When was that wonderful display of gluttony set?
It was last 4th of July by Joey Chestnut.
Oh, all right. So he's just wolfing them down so all right. So I
Yeah.
guess you know what, at plus 200, that's not terrible. Um,
No, it's not
it's
like I'm
so
putting
funny.
putting the mortgage down on it, but I just wanted to get a little skid in the game,
A little
make it
sprinkle.
interesting. Yeah. What
That
can I
is
say? I'm a degenerate.
so. Did they cancel it? Did they postpone it? What's going on? Like, will your bet still be active if they do it tomorrow?
What I saw just before showtime was that they had actually canceled it. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to do it tomorrow. I don't imagine that they will be since, people will be back at work and that's the whole fun is having everybody at Coney Island. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
I'm so sorry, Britt. I don't mean to ruin your 4th of July here. I'm sure you've got other plans after this, don't you? Or I don't even know. It's the afternoon. Have you already been celebrating earlier on in the day? Do you have nighttime plans? What are some of your favorite things about the 4th of July?
So I'm pretty much a firebug. Anything that I can set on fire, I will do, but that's typically frowned upon. It can get you an arson charge. So on the 4th of July, any chance that I can get to light stuff on fire, I take advantage of it. So after this show, the husband and I are going to go run down to the fireworks stand by the house, grab some firecrackers just so I can light some stuff on fire.
Wow. Wow. Which is so funny because it's the complete opposite of me. Like, I ran the sprinklers on the overnight last night, and then I don't know, maybe about an hour or two ago, I set the sprinklers to go off again. I want to soak as much into the ground as possible. I want like the bushes and everything. I want everything to just be so super saturated so that when some Nimrod sets off a bottle rocket that goes awry and lands into my yard, like it's not setting fire to my lawn. It's California here. You'd think that with like the wildfires and the lack of rain that we've had, that people would be smarter about it. No, we got a bunch of Jason Pierre Pauls here, just all willy-nilly, just being a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, it was like that for me growing up as a kid because we had all the cow pastures and the, you know, aside from the cattle, you had the land on top of it. So in dry Arkansas summers, you definitely did not want to catch the pasture on fire. But up here, with the sprinklers and more of a neighborhood environment, we can shoot off a few here and there. What about
um,
you? What's one of your favorite things about the 4th besides sprinklers?
Uh, just saturating the land. You know what? I mean, listen, for me, bottom line, it's all about the grilled meats and it's all about holding my dogs when the fireworks start. Because I've got two out of my three dogs do not like fireworks. We had so our first dog, Mango, who's passed now, she would bark at every firework, which was crazy. Then there was Julius, who, with every firework happened, he continuously tried to go deeper and deeper into the closet or the bathroom or the tub or whatever to like sit and hide. That was our 140-pound wolf dog. So
Oh,
two of the dogs that we have here both knew Mango. Well, Tweezer knew Mango and Julius, and so Tweezer just growls underneath, her breath like Mango would do. Blaze doesn't want any part of it, and Jabu is like, I don't even know what this is. So
like
it's
I'm just confused.
yeah, it's crazy, it's chaotic, and then I also have to, listen to my lovely, I love you so much, Deborah, but chirp, 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 chirp in my ear every time a firework goes up. God, don't these kids know? Don't they know? I'm like, easy, Karen, take a seat, relax. But listen, we're not here to just talk about fireworks and Fourth of July. I mean, listen, you guys are here tuned in. It's Alarm Fantasy Football. Throw your comments into the chat room right over there. You can find us on, I mean, listen, we should be all over social media, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. You can find us on the Better Sports Network fantasy page, YouTube page. You can probably also find us on the Better Sports Network app. So bunch of ways to get in on here. You got comment rooms. We got them all consolidated here. Going to shout out to my man, Scott Frankel. What's up, Scott? Happy 4th to you as well. Appreciate you joining us. The Better Boss is in there, but he's been chirping in my ear all day since the Better Morning Show. So whatever. Let's get to some football. Let's talk about some football stuff here. One of the things I did want to kind of link the Better Morning Show that we did, and you guys, if you haven't tuned into that, 8 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, it's me, it's Britt, it's Coop. Well, it wasn't Coop, it was the Better Boss today, and Corey Parson. And we debate some of the hot topics around sports as they, in the morning, and then you guys get to see video clips throughout the rest of the day. But one of the things that we did talk about was the Saquon Barkley situation. He doesn't want to sign his franchise tag. There's the talk about him holding out. I don't think either one of you or I thought that he was going to hold out on that Le'Veon Bell situation. But I guess the important thing here is what do the Giants do with Saquon? Do you just pay this guy?
Yeah, I don't think you can pay him what he wants. I think he wants around 16 million, which is Christian McCaffrey money. And although Christian McCaffrey has been hurt a little bit more or a little bit less than Saquon, he's got a little bit higher ceiling, in my opinion. And the running back position just isn't as valued as it used to be. The two really need to just come to a little middle ground. Just take a couple million in the grand scheme of things. Is a couple million really worth it? That's all going to be taken out in taxes anyway. Just sign the freaking extension. Just get it done. Just quit with the drama. It doesn't go well for running backs. We've seen it, like you mentioned, with Le'Veon Bell. Melvin Gordon even went on record earlier this summer and said that he regrets holding out those 4 games when he was trying to get an extension with the Chargers. It just never works out for running backs. Just get it done.
Just get it done. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is you don't want to handicap your team by overpaying him for that. But Barkley's a very integral part. And I'm sorry, but if he doesn't sign his franchise tag and holds out, what are they going to do? Bring in Leonard Fournette on a 1-year deal? That's no fun. No fun at all. Other stories around the news in NFL. You've got some stuff in here. Why don't you take the reins and talk to me here? What do we got?
Yeah, so we all saw the Super Bowl. We all saw the players slipping and sliding all over the place due to the poor field conditions. But now the NFL is blaming the players themselves for the slippery field conditions, despite the fact that the Eagles changed their cleats midway through the Super Bowl. It was so slippery that it was kind of an injury risk and a little bit dangerous. It caused some very poor play to happen, which we definitely don't want to see in the Super Bowl. And I think that after all of the talk of players saying that turf is bad to play on, that it causes more injuries, that the NFL just wanted to be like, well, grass is bad too. We're going to keep turf. So it just seems really bad for both sides. I don't like the look, just the optics of this entire situation. And I don't think that they properly upkept the field. The guy who worked on the sod said that it, quote, smelled rotten which is never good, especially with grass and especially for the premier game of the season with the league. So it's just a bad look overall for the entire NFL.
Well, isn't the NFL all about bad looks? I mean, we could talk about their gambling policy and what kind of annoyance that is. Now it's who's responsible for the field. I mean, listen, teams are responsible for the field. They're responsible for the stadium upkeep 100%. The league, I mean, I'm sure that there are, contracts associated with the NFL for groundskeeping and stuff like that. So, listen, who's we can point fingers all we want. Just get it done. Fix the field.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, the finger pointing, the just refusal to take accountability. That's what is the bad look for me. I've also got in here just a little interesting nugget that Andy Dalton still views himself as a starter in the league. And I understand that Bryce Young is a rookie and that it may take him a little bit of time to learn the system, but really, is there a legitimate chance that he's going to start week 1 over the number 1 overall pick? Like,
I mean,
are we this slow in the offseason that we're making this a story?
Well, let's face facts. If Bryce Young is having trouble in camp, it could be a different story. I mean, you don't trade up and trade all of everything that you traded to get that number 1 pick to take Bryce Young to leave him on the bench. You don't, I mean, that's not what you want to do. However, let's face facts and say that this is the NFL and not every QB who has transitioned from college to professional makes that jump successfully. So if he is struggling a little bit, I don't think it's kind of funny because I don't think Carolina is like really that concerned with wins and losses. As weak as the division is, I mean, do you believe that Carolina is going to be like Bryce starts no matter what, even if he looks like crap in camp because we spent all of that on him? Or do we want to kind of cultivate him a little bit more? Panthers aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that you would want to cultivate him because you do have a very high investment in him. And not to harp on this again, but his build, his stature, his durability have all been concerns. Do you want him to go out there and risk getting hurt just because he can't read a defense that's coming at him? So we're just going to have to see during training camp. But I think it's a little funny that Andy Dalton has just been that outspoken about it.
Have you taken Bryce Young in as like, I don't know, if you're doing any super flex drafts or super flex mocks or anything like that? Have you taken Bryce Young at all in the late rounds?
I tend to lean more CJ Stroud than Bryce Young. I haven't really looked at him, and part of it is just because of where I've been drafting. I think I would have taken Bryce Young had he not been there or had he been there, but the hype around him, he's gone before Stroud is. So it's just kind of been an issue of ADP and where he's fallen.
Bryce. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna the red rifle, the red rocket, whatever you want to call him. I always, when I was growing up, red rocket was, when the dog got a little too excited, right? That was the red rocket. And then I think like they were calling Andy Dalton that, and he was like, no, it's the rifle. Is it
Yeah.
though? Is
I
it?
mean, the sound of the rifle is a lot more than or a lot better than the red rocket because I'm I'm in your same camp, Howard. That was the connotation around that phrase
Well,
growing up.
isn't the sound of the red rifle, the red rocket, more like a
Oh my God.
right? If a dog gets all worked up, I
Yes.
tell you. Oh, see, we're
Yes.
back to the dogs again, right?
Yes, we've changed this to a dog show now, guys. This is the fantasy dog show.
What are the odds on the Westminster Kennel Club show? What are the odds for best in show? We should do a show like that.
We should.
We should do a
there
show
there
like
is a
that.
new breed. They're allowing mutts in the Westminster Kennel Club for the first time ever. They are called an American breed.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun factoid of the day.
Man, I'll tell you, I had mutts that would have been absolutely perfect for that. Oh well. Damn. All right. What we're doing here for this show, and the Alarm Fantasy Football show that we've got going on every single day this week. So don't miss out on any of that. We're talking a lot about the NFL draft guide over at fantasyalarm.com, which you can get just by going to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. You can either buy it on its own for $26.99. That comes with, all of the rankings and all of the articles. It comes with the cheat sheet, everything that you could possibly need or want in a draft guide. We've got that for you. You can get that and the cheat sheet for free as part of the All Pro subscription. All right. So you can go over to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. You'll see like the 7-day trial, and you'll see, you can put in the promo code Howard, and that'll get you 50% off. But today and today only, Britt, tell us about this flash sale we've got going on.
Yeah. So, in addition to our monthly package offerings, we also offer an annual package that's typically 40% off of what you would pay the monthly price. In addition to that 40% off, already discounted rate, for today only, if you go to fantasyalarm.com/pricing/annual and use the promo code USA, you get 50% off that already reduced price. That gives you an entire year of every single sport, access to every single thing we have on our site that evens out to under $12 a month. Can you beat that, Howard?
I can't. I can't. I'm having a hard time feeding my family if we keep chopping prices like that too. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
You're gonna jump on that. That's what us and the people are gonna do.
That's
You can't find a better deal than that.
absolutely outstanding. Well, so we're focused in on all of that, and it's oh man, Britt, I'm in trouble for this show. I'm just going to tell you flat out. Because remember, I told you that some friends wanted to get into some Scott Fishbowl mock drafts.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Has
I
it started?
stupidly joined also. I was like, yeah, I'll help you guys out here. And all of a sudden it started right here in the, in the middle of this show with a 60-second clock on the pick. I got the 9th pick overall. This is going to be absolutely brutal, but the show must go on. And again, we want to stay focused here on the guide. What we're going to be talking about today is not only are we going to cover some fantasy football busts, the article from Justin Vreeland in the draft guide, but we're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about fantasy football ADP right now. The majority of the ADP that you get, you can go over to fantasyalarm.com/NFL/ADP, and that's composite ADP from all the best ball drafts that are going on right now. All right. Regular ADP has not really started up that much. It will now that we're hitting the 4th of July action, but we're going to stay focused right now on the current ADP at hand. We're going to look at that, and we're going to be joined by none other than Justin Fensterman, the host of Fantasy Alarm's ADP TV, and get some talk on some risers and some fallers and everything that we could possibly want to do with that. So onwards and upwards. Britt Flynn, are you ready to start talking fantasy football busts?
Yes, let's go. The busts are always my favorite because
All
I'm
right,
negative.
well, if the busts are all your favorite, let's get underway here. We don't want to give away all of Justin's 10 busts that he's got listed there. So let's just we'll whittle it down a little bit here. Most likely to bust in the player in his article who you think is most likely going to be a bust.
Well, and I have to start this out by saying that I named this segment Red, White, and Boo in honor of the 4th of July holiday because we don't want any part of any of these players who are going to bust. But I took Mike Evans, whose aggregate ADP is at 80.31. He's wide receiver 33. He ranked 16th last year in ADOT, and while some of that was due to his ability downfield, a lot of it was Tom Brady's quick release and his accuracy. He's not getting that this season. Last season, he ranked 31st in deep ball attempts, and while his deep ball completion was pretty good, Evans isn't going to see the deep targets needed from Baker Mayfield. I don't like to fade a receiver just because of the quarterback. We got bitten last year by doing that with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But let's be real. With Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, this is not going to happen. I think it's going to be a huge number of dump offs to Rachaad White and to the slot, which is where Chris Godwin lives. If the quarterback is Kyle Trask, then the outlook gets even worse if that's possible. So what are you thinking here about Mike Evans? Are you on the same page?
I'm 100% on the same page with you as Mike Evans. I think Chris Godwin will be the guy who's going to probably benefit the most. I mean, it depends on how accurate Baker Mayfield gets, but being the slot receiver, I think he's going to probably be the guy who's going to see the bulk of targets. My problem with Mike Evans is Baker Mayfield's, or Kyle Trask for that matter, level of accuracy um,
Mhm.
on the deep passing. If that's not going to be, if he's not going to be accurate with his passing, that's going to be a problem for Evans. Even though Evans is great at getting up there, with the vertical game, pulling down those contested catches. If Baker is just kind of chucking it up there, it's going to be a problem. So I agree with you. I think Mike Evans is the lead guy. I will throw an honorable mention, if I may. I'll give you
Absolutely.
an honorable mention, and that's DeAndre Swift. I mean, listen, I don't hate DeAndre Swift. I think that he is capable. I think he is soft. I think that he, is a pass catching. He's nothing more than a pass catching running back.
Mhm.
And isn't that what Rashad Penny is? And kind of isn't that what Kenneth Gainwell is? And I mean, you still have Boston Scott there as well. So he goes from a situation where he got phased out of Detroit for a reason, didn't he?
Yep.
Jamalfa Williams was. Oh, I still call him Jamalfa Williams. I just can't help myself. Um, I mean, he's just to me, DeAndre Swift is a talented player, but he's just he's just not in the right spot for himself here, especially because does Jalen Hurts like to dump it off to the running backs? He does
No.
not.
No, last year they were literally dead last in targets to the running back position. And then you have Jalen Hurts vulturing touchdowns as well. So that caps his upside even more. And then tack on that little injury bug. We like to say around here that we don't plan on injuries, but it's a fact that happens. And historically, when it's happened over and over again, it tends to happen again. So he's got all these things working against him that just don't add up where he's going at ADP. But we've also got a least likely to bust in this article. And you and I think, are on the same page for both of these people. So who do you have as your least likely to bust out of this article?
So I've got Deontay Johnson here. The funny thing is we've seen it. Touchdowns can be a very fluky thing. Like if you play fantasy baseball, wins can be incredibly arbitrary. Touchdowns are incredibly arbitrary in football as well. And so Deontay Johnson didn't have any touchdowns last year, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's Pickett to Pickens and Pickett to Pickens. Deontay Johnson still led the team in targets, right? And led the team in yards. And Pickens had some great moments. But Deontay Johnson is the alpha male in this receiving core, and he's going to continue to be the alpha male in this receiving core. The touchdowns will happen for him. So, I mean, look, ADP 76.35 going as wide receiver 32. Please let me have that discount, every single draft because I'll be scooping them up.
Yeah, that feels like almost his absolute floor. You think about any kind of touchdowns that he would have scored last year, and it would have vaulted him into the next tier. There's got to be some positive regression here. They've kind of shored up that offensive line. Kenny Pickett's got another year in the system. They've got a healthy Najee Harris, which they didn't have for almost the first half of the season last year with that foot injury. I think that they're going to do a lot better than people think on their offense. And wide receiver 32 feels like his absolute floor. For me, I'm taking another guy who year after year, people just seem to be out on him. And every year he produces. He defies the age odds and just continues to be the unicorn. And that guy is Derrick Henry. He's going at an ADP of 23.17 as RB9. Um, but even though the drop off is going to happen eventually, sure. But until he starts to show it, I'm buying this guy everywhere I can, especially at RB9. He finished as RB4 last year, RB3 in 2020, RB5 in 2019. And before he got injured in 2021, he was the RB1. And it took Jonathan Taylor 2 weeks to overcome him with him sitting out for those 2 games. Henry is still going to get these carries. He's going to get work in the passing game, which has been a point of contention in prior seasons. And a little bit of decline is already built into his ADP. So even though his yards per carry has gone down, the volume alone sets him up for a huge season, especially on an offense that didn't really change that much.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that his ADP has already got the wear and tear on his body like already baked in. Um, Drafting Derrick Henry for me, does it feel like a little musical chairs? Like you don't want to be the one when left standing when the music stops. Nobody wants to be left holding the bag on Derrick Henry when he does crumble. And I think that I'll happily take the discount on him if you're going to give me Derrick Henry at the tail end of the second round. Okay, I'll do that. You just have to make sure that you handcuff him to. I guess Tajay Spears is going to be the guy who's sitting behind him now. So I think that's kind of where where we need to look most. Um, as far as taking Derrick Henry, you got to make sure you handcuff him just to keep yourself protected. But I agree with you. I think that the discount is great, and he's just going to continue to see volume until the wheels eventually fall off the wagon. I don't know if it's this year. Certainly not going to be the beginning of the season. So maybe he's like I'll draft him and then trade high.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't necessarily like him in dynasty leagues by any means. If you're in a startup, that's a different story. But in redraft, you said it, ride him until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's see. Now we've got 10 players. We've talked 4 of them. So let's move out of this article here real quick and let's talk about players who we think are going to bust, who didn't make this list here for Justin. Where do you want to start?
So I'm going to start with Christian Watson from the Packers. His ADP is 58.32. He's going as the wide receiver 25 overall everywhere. I've kind of harped on this over the past few weeks on various shows, so I apologize if you've heard this rant before, but I'm not seeing this big breakout that everyone is expecting from him. We got a little too enamored with those 3 big games that he had last year. He had that big 3 touchdown game against Dallas. He had a couple other 100-yard games, but outside from that, he never went over 49 yards. He was so boom or bust, and that was with Aaron Rodgers. Now you have Jordan Love, who we're very unsure of. We don't know what he's going to look like in this system. We don't know if LaFleur is just going to run the ball into the next century. We don't know. If you look at Jordan Love's college stats, his ADOT was pretty low. He didn't like throwing the deep ball because that's where he got in trouble and got caught with interceptions. I think that Romeo Doubs is going to be a much bigger target than Christian Watson is. And at wide receiver 25, there are just so many better players at that ADP that I want to take a risk on with a much higher upside. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat right now. We're both, I'm not gonna crap on the talent of Christian Watson, and my pick is actually Marquise Hollywood Brown. Whose ADP is going off as wide receiver 34. His ADP is 80.53. A lot of people are grabbing him because he's the lead wide receiver for Arizona, but just like Christian Watson, it's like, do we trust the guy who's throwing him the ball? I don't know what we've got going on with Kyler Murray, and then you've got Colt McCoy, and I don't even who's that third string guy that just got drafted? What was his name?
Oh gosh, it's the name's escaping me right now.
Yeah, it's me too. I'm gonna find
sixth round rookie.
Yeah, it's Clayton Tune.
Clayton Tune, yes. Who knows? We don't, and Colt McCoy may not even be healthy either because we forget he got hurt at the end of last season as well. So they could very well start the season with Clayton Tune at quarterback. And that's not something that I want to see.
Yeah. So I'm not getting all hugged up with any Arizona wide receivers at all. Especially Marquise Brown. I'm gonna have to avoid it. I'm out.
Out.
Right? Can we do this like Shark Tank? I'm sorry, but I'm out. I'm out on Marquise Brown.
I've actually never watched Shark Tank.
You've never seen an episode of Shark Tank?
No, I haven't.
On now.
I know.
Brit.
I know. I'm
really?
A disappointment. Yeah.
Never?
No.
Never. Okay.
Not never. Right. Ernie, shout out to our producer behind the glass. Ernie just typed in our private chat, shun.
Sure.
I tend to get that a lot because I don't watch a lot of TV and or movies. So yeah, and while we're at it, I don't know how to ride a bike. So, shun me again.
Wait, what?
Yep. I grew up on a farm. What was I going to do? Learn to ride a bicycle in a field?
Who doesn't
No.
ride a bike down the lane? You see it in all of these movies about the countryside.
Yep, no, not me.
Seriously?
Yep, never learned to ride a bike either. So
Oh my
just do a double
God.
shun. The
Can,
most un-American thing ever on the most American holiday.
can Sellers ride a bike?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Has
of
he tried
course.
to teach you how to ride a bike?
No.
Do
I think he
you have
knows
no
better.
desire to ride a bike?
I'm so clumsy. Like legitimately so clumsy. And now in my old age, I think that I would break a hip when I crash. Not if I crash, but when I crash. So yeah, I just avoid it.
Wow. Wow. That is fantastic. That is not something that I knew at all. So, wow. All right. Let's move along here. I'm getting hit with all of these things here. Before we continue here, I just want to give a shout out to our good friends over at rtsports.com. Folks, if you like props, if you like pick'em contests, RT Sports is definitely the where you want to be hanging out and living. Now, they're going to have it for NFL, so rushing yards, receiving yards, pass, like all of that stuff going to be available to you. But start now because they're doing it for baseball, golf, any sports that are going on right now. They have these props available to you guys. Go to rtsports.com/alarm, right? And then use the promo code alarm23. That'll get you 100% match on your first deposit up to $200. So just want to make sure that you guys are all set and squared away. Check out social media videos all over the place and keep watching the Better Sports Network because we're helping you guys with those prop picks throughout the way. So again, rtsports.com/alarm, promo code alarm23 gets you that match on that first deposit up to $200. Britt, let's talk so those are the busts. And you guys can go and check out Justin Vreeland's article over at fantasyalarm.com and get that draft guide. What you want to do now, what we're going to do now, we're going to start focusing on ADP. So if you're actually watching along on your computer or your tablet, you can also open up another window and go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL/ADP and kind of follow along with me and Britt here. But before we start diving into like actual numbers, Britt, let's talk about ADP value picks. And that is, the question that you actually posed to me. What are you looking for with a value pick? Like specifically, what are you looking for?
So I want to see the points that this player can provide versus the points provided by other players at a similar ADP. You can also look for players you think are going to break out, which is also another article that we have over in the draft guide, especially for wide receivers like Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp in 2021. You had Christian Kirk and Josh Jacobs in 2022, etc. So what I do is look at the ceiling versus the floor that this player offers, and then compare that with everyone else in the same ADP where you're drafting them at. What do you look for?
It's kind of funny what I actually look for in a value pick. For me, and I kind of do this. I do this with my betting a lot. Also, I'm a contrarian better. Like when the public's all going in one way, I love going in the opposite direction. So what do I look for in a value pick? I look for any player that the general public is completely down on for no legitimate reason. Like anytime you're getting a discount on a player because the public perception and the group think is off for whatever reason it is, to me, that's a value pick. Last year, Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. I had both of them penciled in as fantastic value picks because everybody was so down on them. Miles Sanders didn't score any touchdowns the year before. And so, hi, Deontay Johnson. But Miles Sanders was in that situation. And look at what he did last year. You take a look at Josh Jacobs. The team didn't pick up his fifth-year option. Me, I'm like, well, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. They're going to run him into the ground right now and just give him, as many carries as they can possibly give him. And so that's kind of exactly what happened there with Josh Jacobs. So I found that completely interesting. The year before, Jamar Chase, couldn't catch a football because it didn't have white stripes on it. The year before that, it was Justin Jefferson, and he wasn't any good because nobody was drafting him, and he wasn't going to be involved in the scheme heavily. So once the public is down on a guy, I immediately add him to my watch list because I think that's kind of where you kind of want to live.
I think so too. And I'm very guilty of buying into that Josh Jacobs groupthink mentality because I saw him start the Hall of Fame game in preseason and I was like, oh, nope, that's it. He's done. He's starting a preseason game. And then he comes out here and has the best season of his entire career. So I'm guilty of that. This is one of the things that I will fully admit. And I'm gonna take more of your advice and be a little more contrarian. But as we move on, there are several players I think that will provide value at their ADP, and so we broke this down a little bit by position. We just each brought in one for each skill position. So for quarterback, Howard, who do you think is going to provide value at their ADP going into the 2023 season?
Before I answer this question, do you see what's going on in our chat room right now?
They're having a just a full-on conversation.
Right, Franklin and Sellers are both hanging in there right now. They're chatting up
Yep,
the world here,
it's
which
great.
is
They've commandeered the chat.
absolutely hysterical. But I don't want to ignore what's going on in the chat because T-Man actually had a pretty nice comment. NFL talent is NFL talent. Watson was an RC last year, and Rodgers ignored rookies and connected with veterans he trusted. Watson's going to be a top 10 this year, which T-Man, I need to know who your favorite team is because if you're telling me that you're a Packers fan, I'm gonna have a hard time accepting this because I just don't know what's going on with Jordan Love.
Yeah, and that's my thing too. I just until I see at least some preseason or even some training camp, I don't really think that that is the way that the offense is going to operate. Aaron Rodgers went out there, he called his own shots, he called his own plays. The man did what he wanted to do. He didn't listen to the floor whatsoever. And so now we actually get to peel a few layers of the onion back and see what's actually going on in this offensive scheme. And we don't really know because Rodgers has been there just YOLOing it for years and years and years.
Aaron Rodgers has been YOLOing it. Want to give a shout out to Angie Hatfield, who's hanging out in the chat room right now. She commenting on the double shun. Maybe that's because neither one of us said hello to her. Sorry, Angie. And shout out to Joanna, who said the NFL is just gaslighting us. Why are they so cheap? Wouldn't you want to take care of your cash cow, i.e., the players? Well, isn't that the biggest issue right now with the way NFL players are treated by the league? They're treated like cattle. I mean,
Yep, and I
I don't mean to kind of make that comparison, but you've got your absolute superstars who everybody loves, and you've got your big names out there, but then every other player out there is just to the NFL, in my opinion, to the front office in the NFL, it's just a matter of whatever. We're gonna get 20 guys just like you coming into the league next year.
Yep, and we're seeing it with running backs right now at this moment. We've got guys under 30 who are still not exactly in their prime, but still very much able to produce in an offense who are just sitting out there in free agency and nobody wants them. Nobody wants to pay them. Nobody wants to value them for what they're doing and at a position that not a lot of people are going to be playing in the future if this pattern continues. Why would you play running back when you can switch to another position, even on the defense, that gets paid significantly more? So I think that's kind of a big problem, and the NFLPA needs to address it.
Definitely needs to address it. All right, I just want to say hi to everybody. Let you guys know that we're not ignoring you here. Oh, T-Man's a Patriots fan. Well, T-Man, I'm a Jets fan. So right off the bat, we're not going to get along. We're not there you go. We'll let T-Man also says, excuse me, Kenny Pickett undervalued. All right. Yeah. I could see that. Maybe it's because he's got these little tiny baby hands. little beanie
Well,
baby hands.
when he
Um,
throws all those touchdowns to Deontay Johnson,
oh,
they'll
that's
they'll
gonna
show
be so
you.
good. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. All right, let's get back to your original question here. Players we think will provide value at their ADP, and we're starting with the quarterbacks. And I'll say this: I think it's actually to me it's absolutely hysterical. Um, I'm gonna go with Tua Tagovailoa. Like I get it, Tung. He's I'm not gonna say problematic, but with the concussions, I get that there's the concern. If this guy stays healthy, and I think that Miami is going to do anything and everything they can to ensure that he stays healthy. If this guy stays healthy, he has got two of the biggest playmaking wide receivers. He's likely to get Dalvin Cook in there. He's got some pass catching running backs, available to him. As much as I hate saying it, because I was in a draft yesterday. I was in the Independence Invitational over at Sirius XM, and I took Tua in like the second to last round because nobody was taking him, nobody was touching him, and I was like, all right, listen, I've got Daniel Jones as my as one of my QBs. I need a second QB because I follow the dynamic tier rankings that we're looking at, and so I was like, I'll grab Tua here as an upside play. If this dude stays healthy, he's going as QB 11. The ADP says 92.05, but again, I was just in a 12-team draft where, I mean, that dude was about to go undrafted in that league. So I got to tell you, I think he's definitely going to return value.
That's so crazy to me. And we scoffed at Tyreek Hill with him saying that Tua was the most accurate quarterback that he's ever played with. And we're like, oh, yeah, right. You came from Mahomes in Kansas City. If you look at the actual numbers, you look at yards per attempt, he ranked first. You look at air yards per attempt, he ranked third. You look at his deep ball completion percentage, he ranked first. You look at his red zone accuracy rating, he ranked second. I mean, the numbers on this guy tell the whole story. This guy is good. And the only reason that people are afraid of him is because he has dealt with concussion issues. But Miami, I think, did a little bit to their line. He's been taking jujitsu classes to learn how to fall. He's been getting rid of the ball. So he's not just back there in the pocket being a sitting duck. I think that he's made a lot of improvements so that he does reach that next level this year. And then with Tyreek Hill having an entire year of that playbook under his belt, we found out that he didn't even know the playbook, that he was just out there kind of running around and just catching balls and doing
Just
what he
all
does.
willy-nilly.
Just like, yeah, just backyard footballing it. And he still put up those numbers with Tua. I think with a full season, this Miami deep or offense is going to be really, really
Scary as a Jets fan, no doubt about it. How about you? Who's your quarterback that's going to be providing the value that you need?
So don't laugh at me, guys, but it's Russell Wilson. And this may not be a ringing endorsement for him based off this first sentence, but he can't get much worse, right? He was QB 16 last year. He's currently going as QB 18, and now with Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, he's a very good choice for a second quarterback. If you're the type of person who likes to kind of handcuff your quarterback just to make sure that you've got your bye week situated, he offers huge upside. And at the very least, he could sneak into the QB1 conversation and return some spike weeks if you're doing best ball. The Broncos defense also improved a lot over the offseason, so he won't be forced into throwing those errant balls downfield, trying to play catch up week after week after week. I think that we see a lot of improvement on this offense, and Russell Wilson is just so cheap that even if he doesn't, he's free.
Yeah, he's definitely free. And as a second QB in a single QB league, if you're grabbing him for the potential and the upside, I agree with you. I think it's kind of a bit of a free pick, and I mean, listen, we'll see what happens. We watched what happened with Drew Brees when he started working with Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, and I think that there are great weapons in that offensive scheme that they've got going on. So I like it. I just of course, there's the little piece of me that's still really gun shy about it because, like, I don't know. I would say at least 40% of my best ball teams last year just got completely blown up because of because of Russell Wilson and that stupid Denver stack that I was investing in.
Yep, I was so overexposed because I just knew that this was gonna be such a great situation for all involved, and then Javonte went down. It wasn't exactly looking good before that, but after that, it just all went, in the toilet.
It just boom,
Yes.
way down. All right, let's go to running backs. Who do you have as far as a running back who you think is going to provide value at their current ADP?
So I don't get the hate on Antonio Gibson. He's currently going as the RB33 at an ADP of 99.65. And over the past 3 years, he's finished as RB13, RB10, and even last year, which was a down year for him, he finished at RB28, which returns value on his current ADP. This year, Washington brought in Eric Bieniemy from the Kansas City Chiefs, and we all saw what he did with Jerick McKinnon and checking that ball down. We've also seen that targets, whoever did this math, God bless you. Targets are worth 2.53 times more than a carry in PPR leagues and 1.9 times more valuable in half PPR leagues. And if they're going to pepper Gibson with targets like all the people are saying in the offseason, then his value is going to skyrocket. He ranked ninth in yards per routes run last season. And as long as that's his role, I don't care if he has a single rushing attempt. If that is his role as a pass catching back, he's going to crush his ADP.
Are they going to use him? I mean, I guess my biggest issue, and I get it. They've got a new offensive coordinator in there, and you've got Sam Howell as the guy. But I think one of the things that bugged me the most about Antonio Gibson was that he was a wide receiver running back hybrid in college, and then they wouldn't throw him the football at all. So now that they bring in Brian Robinson, who was their lead back, and he missed a couple of games because he got shot, but then he came back in and they utilized him and they didn't touch Antonio Gibson, like you said, what, RB28 did you say?
Mm-hmm. Yep, he was, but even on that, he returns value from RB33, where he's going. You can get him in the eighth or ninth round. I mean, to me, his upside, even if they don't utilize him, if he stays in the exact same role as he did last year, which I don't think that he will, then he still returns value. I think his upside, though, with the enemy coming in, is so much higher than people are giving him credit for.
I hope so, man. I hope the enemy does
And
something with him. I mean, obviously, he's going to try and copycat that Chiefs offense.
which we'll
Ah,
see how well that works with Sam Howell.
yeah. What
But
do you mean? He's not Pat Mahomes?
right,
What the hell?
but I think that might actually even work out better for him because if he's forced to check down, Heineke was a pretty prolific deep ball passer. He might not have been great at his accuracy, but he liked to throw the ball downfield. I think that Hal will be forced into a lot more check down situations where Gibson sees those targets.
Okay.
So who do you got?
Who do I got? I
Because
got
I'm
another.
interested in this one.
I've just got another forgotten guy, Alexander Madison. Right? I mean, right now he's coming off the board as RB23. His ADP is at 62.12. And with them cutting Dalvin Cook, he's still not, like, people aren't taking him any earlier. And I find that just incredibly odd. Like, why are we it's not that I'm like buying in that Alexander Madison is the be all end all, but I'm sorry, what is it? Ty Chandler, who's the pass catching back, or supposed to be the pass catching back over there? To me, it's not a good situation to ignore. Like, I mean, why would you ignore a starting running back who's likely to get all the goal line touches in a pass heavy scheme? Maybe that's why everybody's avoiding it, but I think Madison's a guy who I think way too many people are forgetting about, Brett.
See, I'm actually on the Madison hate train. Um, I
Uh-oh.
think that the sample size that we've seen from him is much too small to
Mhm.
think that he's durable enough to withstand a bell cow role, which is what everybody's putting him in. And then there's the issue of his pass blocking. And this is where I think the real crux of the argument comes in. He ranked 69th overall in pass blocking. Ty Chandler ranked third overall out of every single running back in the league
Yeah, but
was third.
how many plays was
And
Ty Chandler on the field for?
I can tell you real quick.
I mean, because I think that's another tell. We're going to talk sample size here. I'd like to see how many snaps he got that they're like ranking him so high as this amazing pass blocker.
Yeah, he didn't have many snaps, but I think he was a good pass blocker in college as well. And then you look at Dwayne McBride coming in as well. I can really see this going to a running back by committee. And if Madison can't hold up to that, I just don't see a lot of upside for him there. It's not that I was wrong, I guess, when I said that I was on his hate train, but I just don't see a lot of upside for him.
You
And
could be
that's
on his hate
why,
trade.
well, I just phrased that wrong. We don't hate players, we hate ADP. And that's what I meant with that. And that's why this training camp battle is so important, and why the training camp battle article that I'm putting out tomorrow is going to be so chock full of information when you're trying to make these decisions in your early drafts.
Ooh,
Um,
when's that going
yeah,
to drop? When, in the
it's gonna.
morning?
I think so. Yeah,
Nice.
it's. I would say it's got about 5 more minutes in cake language, 5 more minutes in the oven, and it's done.
I didn't realize you were such a strong baker. I love that.
You know.
All right, let's talk wide receivers now. So, you know what? And I'll just go first because I'm gonna be that son of a bitch who's gonna go first. That's because I love talking about Christian Kirk. Wide receiver 28, he's coming off the board at ADP is 65.67. At no, Scott Frankel, there will not be cake. I like the way you're thinking, though, but there won't be cake. I think everybody is so in on Calvin Ridley, and I love Calvin Ridley. I really do. But are we really going to just shun the work that Christian Kirk did last year? Are we going to ignore the fact that Trevor Lawrence loves slot receivers, and that Christian Kirk, who took so many snaps out of the slot, is likely to stay in that position with, in 3 receiver sets, he's going to work out of the slot. He'll be on the outside in 2 receiver sets with Calvin Ridley. But everybody's so like Ridley. The dude hasn't played a snap in 2 years, right? I mean, last year he was suspended because of gambling. The year before that, he pulled himself out because of a mental health situation. And so he hasn't played in 2 years, but yet everybody's drafting him like he's a wide receiver 1. As much as I love the Jaguars and as much as I love their system, I love what they've done. The growth for Trevor Lawrence has been beautiful. His work with Doug Peterson in this offensive scheme has been brilliant. But why are we ignoring Christian Kirk, who's got that experience side by side with Trevor Lawrence, in favor of Calvin Ridley, who has not played in 2 years? So you keep leaving me Christian Kirk, I'm going to be a happy camper.
Yeah, and let's say that Ridley lives up to all the expectations that everybody's putting on him. Okay, so what? Did we see what the Jaguars did last year with Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram? I mean, there's plenty of volume to go around here. And I think it's actually going to be Evan Ingram as the odd man out of those 3 this year. Yeah. I think it'll be Ridley. I think it'll be Kirk, who will be a target monster. I think Ingram's going to end up being the guy who falls off. And he's being drafted as tight end 8 right now out of all the aggregate sites. I really think it's going to be him. Why are we suddenly thinking that Christian Kirk is going to go back to his old ways? He's developed a relationship with Lawrence. He looks good. He can move well. He can get separation. His ADP is a steal.
I think his ADP is a steal.
And so
who do you
I'm going
got?
to go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett, who's another guy who's just perennially undervalued. I get that they brought in Jackson Smith and Jigba, but Lockett was wide receiver 13 last year, wide receiver 16 the year before, and then wide receiver 8. And yet he's still going as wide receiver 30. JSN isn't going to eat into his value that much, especially during the early part of the season while he's still learning the system. And I really honestly wouldn't be surprised if Lockett held on to that wide receiver 2 spot in the depth chart until even next year. He's still able to get separation. That kind of makes him the yin to DK Metcalf's yang. While DK Metcalf can go up and grab those 50-50 balls, Lockett can just split from the defensive back who's guarding him, and Geno can have his pick of where he wants to throw that ball. He's one of the best receivers in the league against man coverage, and it's going to take JSN a while to develop. So Lockett's a screaming value for me at wide receiver 30. I've honestly taken him in so many best balls. I'm probably kind of overweight on him. But what do you think about Lockett?
I think you're right on point here with Lockett because again you draft Jackson Smith and the Jigba. Okay, you're going to want to integrate him at some point, but you still have Lockett and Metcalf there, and I think is this a contract year for Lockett too?
I think that you're right.
I think it might be. So when you're dealing with that kind of situation here, I mean, why are like fine if you're in a dynasty league and you want to take Jackson Smith and Najigba over Tyler Lockett, go ahead, do it. Kid's gonna have an amazing career in the NFL, especially once the Seahawks find themselves a better throwing quarterback than Geno Smith. Yeah, I said it, but that's dynasty. I'm talking about redraft right now, and Tyler Lockett is what's now. Maybe they trade him midway through the season, and that opens things up for Jackson Smith and Jigba, at all. But to sit there and sleep on Tyler Lockett, who has been right there, the go-to guy, along with DK Metcalf, yeah, I think it's a crazy mistake that people are making. So I like it. Was he wide receiver 30? You said
wide receiver 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
We'll wrap up some wide receiver talk here. T-Man wants to know any updates on the Tyreek Hill situation. I do not have any kind of an update on the Hill situation. I haven't heard anything recently. I don't know if you've heard anything recently, Britt. The bottom line is we all know that the NFL is great at dragging its ass on disciplining players. We're still waiting to see what happens with Alvin Kamara's suit, which goes to court when training camp actually opens. So haven't heard anything about Tyreek Hill at all. How about you?
No, I haven't heard anything. But as far as the suspension goes, the NFL and their burden of proof is far lower than what it is in criminal situations. So if something comes out, I think the main thing that would cause a suspension is the bribery attempt of $200, which is just laughable. I like $200. You literally told the man that you can afford to buy his boat and then tried to buy him off with $200. But I digress. I think that is a little bit more serious than smacking a man like in the back of the head. We'll have to wait and see. But the NFL can suspend a player even if they aren't convicted in criminal court. So we'll just have to wait and see as details come out. But right now, he's still going in the top tier of the receivers for me.
So back in the day, Britt, there was a movie called Beverly Hills Cop that starred Eddie Murphy. In the second Beverly Hills Cop, he goes into the office of Gilbert Gottfried, who's a lawyer. And I don't know, do you know who Gilbert Gottfried is?
I do. He voiced the parrot in Aladdin.
Yes. So Eddie Murphy goes in, and he's talking about like parking tickets or something like that. And Gilbert Gottfried does this whole bit of like, well, let's just say you've got these parking tickets in one hand here, and in the other hand you got I don't know, $200 maybe. And he starts doing this whole thing about I got $200 in one hand and parking tickets. I don't even remember what's in this hand because I got $200 here. So at least I hope Tyreek Hill was doing like his Gilbert Gottfried, may he rest in peace, impression when trying to bribe the boat owner.
Failed to account for inflation on that one.
All right. We got to go with running tight ends here real quick because we got Justin Fensterman who's going to be joining us in a hot sec. So tight ends who value, I'm just going to say Dalton Schultz. Tight end 12, ADP 124.43. We all know that young quarterbacks tend to lean on their tight ends. They brought in Dalton Schultz to be that red zone target, to be that first down marker for CJ Stroud. So I think Dalton Schultz is going to produce probably more like tight end 5 or 6 than he is tight end 12.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. He's one of the most experienced guys on this team, aside from Robert Woods. Other than that, you've got a bunch of young guys with a young quarterback. And what do young quarterbacks do? They tend to gravitate towards the vets. For mine, I'm going Mike Gesicki. I'm going a really deep cut here. He's currently going as tight end 21 at an ADP of 170. So you can grab him in the very last rounds of your draft. But Bill Belichick called him a receiver, not a tight end. And I think he's going to properly use him as one. Then you look at what Bill O'Brien has done in the past with tight ends. Mac Jones has apparently already developed a connection with Gesicki from the get go. And if you look at their wide receiver room, really, who else are you going to throw it to? So I think he can sneak back into the top tight end conversation. And again, if you get him in the last round of your drafts and he doesn't do anything, just dump him. He's for free.
I love that. And that's always great advice. When you make these last late round picks and stuff like that, if they don't work out and you need the roster spot, then it's an easy cut. So I love that. All right. That's some ADP talk right there. When we come back, we're going to bring in Justin Fensterman, who does all the narration for ADP TV. The video is live over at fantasyalarm.com right now. But before we bring in Fensty, well, we obviously need to straighten up the place a little bit here. But we also want to hear from our good friends at RT Sports.
My first bust is going to be Davante Adams. There's two reasons why I'm going to be avoiding him. One, his age, and one, his QB situation. First off, his age. He's going to be turning 31 this year. There's only 2 wide receivers in all of football that are 31 or older and having production like top tier production in the top 50 wide receiver rankings, and that's DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen. Those are the only 2 wide receivers that are older than him ranked in the top 50, and both of those have been struggling with injuries. So the injury bug might be coming towards Davante Adams just with that age, so that's definitely a concern for me. And then his second situation is with the QB with Derek Carr being gone and Jimmy Garoppolo taking over. Garoppolo doesn't target downfield as much. He's more of those quick short passes, release the ball quickly. So that's definitely a concern for Adams, especially with he relies so much what he did in Green Bay with his touchdowns. And he's currently being drafted at 17 for his ADP, so that's a bit too high of a price for me to pay for him.
Yeah, definitely a high price if you want to get Adams. I can totally understand why you would be fading him. I actually have a former teammate of Adams as my first bust, and that is New York Giants tight end Darren Waller. He was dealt to the Giants this offseason, takes over as their starting tight end. My issue with Waller is he just can't stay healthy. He's played just 20 games the last 2 seasons because of various injuries. Now he moves to a new offense, an offense that's not going to throw quite as much as Las Vegas did. I think you could see less targets. Waller might still have a decent season, but I'm expecting his numbers to be up and down, especially compared to past years, and I just have a hard time expecting consistency from him in a move to a new offense and with his injury issues of the past. I'm just letting somebody else deal with him. I don't think he's worth the risk.
America, may God thy gold refine. I could just let this all play through, but I probably shouldn't. We should probably talk more football, right?
Yeah, we should probably get back to work.
All right, okay, fine. We can do that. We can do that. And yeah, listen, happy 4th of July to everybody out there. I'm Howard Bender. This is Britt Flynn. If you're just joining us, this is Alarm Fantasy Football, where we are basically giving you your July 4th whole week primer shows here, helping you understand what we've got in the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide, what we offer here as far as content and shows and articles and everything like that here with Fantasy Alarm and obviously the Better Sports Network as well. So welcome to it. And if you guys want to get that Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide, go to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide and get yourselves a copy. You can buy it on its own if you want for $26.99. That comes with the cheat sheet, but I think you're better off with the All Sports Pro subscription that we offer. And Britt, we have a very special deal going on today only.
We do. Get it while it's hot. In addition to the monthly package, we also offer an annual package that is typically discounted 40% off the normal month-to-month price. But for today only, if you use promo code USA, you can get 50% off that already discounted price and have everything set for a full year. That's everything that we've got on our site, every single sport, every single lineup optimizer, every single part of the draft guide. I literally mean everything. So jump in and don't miss out on this deal.
Don't miss out on it. I'm telling you, super, super special. Do it today while you can. And then again, just I don't know, play DFS with us all week and all weekend long. Play the RT Sports Pick'em contest. Get your picks from us right here on the shows on Better Sports Network. We're also going to be doing a bunch of stuff on the Fantasy Alarm show on SiriusXM as well. So it'll just all pay for itself. Speaking about paying for itself, the man who's got to buy his lunch on his own every single day because we don't let him eat in the Fantasy Alarm cafeteria. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Justin Fensterman. What's up, brother? Welcome in.
What's going on? It's Fensty the Outsider here. How's everything going by you guys? How's everything?
It's so good. The hot dog contest is back on. We just got word that it's coming back.
I was about to be really pissed about that. It's actually one of my favorite things, and I'm calling it a sporting event. It's one of my favorite sporting events of the year. Not as much for the contest, but the George Shea introductions to the competitors, like second to none. Just amazing.
I'm very excited about it.
I want to, you know what? I got to ask Fensty this because I think it's important because we talked on the Better Morning Show. We talked about if we were in a food contest, an eating contest, what would we do? And Britt, you were like, I will out eat anybody if I get nothing but a plate of wings, flats only. Right? I think you were like, she's like, I'm going to, you ever see Fensty knows the movie My Cousin Vinny. Remember when the dude like takes the chicken leg and he just goes,
yeah,
like that's Britt with the
JT's friend in the bar. That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
She like adds the teeth to the top of it. She's like, straight, but it's gone. For me, I was like, I'm doing the cool hand Luke thing and 50 eggs. 50 eggs. No man can eat 50 eggs. So eggs for me. Britt says flats as far as wings go. Fensty, if you were in a competitive eating contest, what would be your go-to? What would you win no matter what?
Smart Food white cheddar popcorn. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. I believe the record is still held by Crazy Legs Conti, he's over 50 years old at this point, and I don't think he competes in the hot dog eating contest anymore. But I'm going to be that guy, like George Shea would say, he ate himself out of 6 feet of popcorn to make it to the contest, Crazy Legs Conti. I would be that guy. I love Smart Food white cheddar popcorn.
Okay, I have a question about this. How do you measure the amount of popcorn that's actually eaten versus the amount of popcorn that ends up on the floor?
I'm not a scientist, Brett. Come on. Like, what am I? I don't measure this stuff. Let me put it to you this way in simpler terms. You give me one of those big bags like that you get at the gas station, I could probably eat 2 of those in a sitting easily.
Oh my gosh.
First of all, who's buying their popcorn at the gas station?
The gas station has all the great snacks. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Second of all, doesn't like the excessive popcorn, doesn't that give you the win something fierce?
Of course it does. But, it's.
And the eggs don't?
But see, the difference is like when you're eating popcorn, there's so much air.
Yep.
Like that like it like opens it up. If you're just eating some scrambled eggs or something like that.
Trust me, I feel like Violet Beauregard in Willy Wonka after she eats the gum and everything, the 3-course meal gum and the blueberry. Trust me, I feel like that, but I just love it. And I can't even have it in the house because they even have 100-calorie bags, and I'll eat about 3/4 of the entire container of the 100-calorie bags in one sitting. I'm obsessed with it.
Aren't 100-calorie bags of popcorn considered single serving?
Yeah, but that rules don't apply when you're obsessed with the food, I just keep going and going because it's not enough. It's never enough.
I want to hear from everybody out there in the chat. If you had to like, what's your go-to food? If it was like, you got to win this contest, what's it going to be? I see Scott Frankel saying ice cream. I will gladly be in an ice cream eating contest with you. But Sellers is telling us to ask Britt about her pork rind obsession here.
So I only get them on road trips, but they are essential. Something about the spice. You know what? I don't care. They are delicious. The spice and the crunch, it'll make your car smell like farts, but it's delicious. And it's enough It's enough to keep my ADD in check because my brain is processing the spice, it's processing the crunch, it's processing to make sure that I don't get one of those really, really crunchy ones that went in there too long. And then I'm driving at the same time, so I don't focus on me being tired. It's a perfect combination of a road trip food.
All right. Okay. Mr. Scampers is all in on the barbecue pork lo mein. I'm with you there, Mr. Scampers. 100%. T-Man says ribs. Yeah, again, good choice. I don't think, again, with the exception of seafood, I don't think I'm going to turn down anything. Howard, do you have a link for today's offer? I'm looking to sign on the site, but cannot find the offer. Britt, where do they go for that? You had that link on your Twitter page. Can you give that out to the crew here?
Yeah, of course. So go to fantasyalarm.com/pricing/annual, and then it'll bring you to that page where you can click go annual, and then it'll take you to the page where you enter all your information and the promo code USA.
All right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Angie, you're going to lose, Angie. Don't challenge the beast. You're going to lose. I'm sorry.
Oh, I want to see that. Angie versus Fedsty in a popcorn eating contest. Oh, man.
Love some popcorn.
Popcorn.
What a bump. All right, Fedsty, we didn't bring you in here to talk food, although I'm more than happy to. We brought you in here so you do ADP TV, and so you're basically looking at risers and fallers throughout. Now it's obviously early right now in the draft season. A lot of this is all best ball, but let's talk about what you've seen so far in the data, and talk to us. What's in the latest video? Who you got? Who do you see this on the rise right now?
There's someone that I think is going to rise up here. And normally the first few weeks, I do this once a week. A new video will come out on fantasyalarm.com. And then after the first few weeks of establishing the ADP a little bit, putting a few names together, then I start going with the risers and the fallers, especially as we hit August. But someone that I think is going to rise just a little bit. And I'm kind of surprised he's going as late as he is. Joe Burrow from the Bengals. I mean, accurate passer. I sometimes think we get too obsessed with the running quarterback. But for me, I often look at quarterbacks that can actually throw the darn ball. And this guy is Mr. Accuracy right here. And I wanted to kind of throw it back to you guys, because I'll say this, the ADP that I was seeing being in the late 4th round, I think is awesome. I think it's great value. And if he's going to still remain there, which I think he's going to start to rise up a little bit past someone like Lamar Jackson, then I'm still going to go drafting him every single time, meaning that it is possible that he does last to the 5th round, which I think is sick value. And I want to ask both of you this question, and maybe you could talk me into him or not. I see Lamar Jackson going before Joe Burrow, and I just don't get it. I look, we all know how athletic Lamar Jackson is. We know that he's got another weapon or two. I still really don't want to go anywhere near him and most of his teammates, for that matter. I'm just not interested as a passer. I mean, he's connected with Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews can work with other quarterbacks as well if and when this guy gets hurt. Oh, yeah, he has gotten hurt the last couple of seasons. So I just worry a little bit, and it just shocks me that Lamar Jackson I'm seeing is being drafted before Joe Burrow by about 6 picks.
Yeah, he says that he wants to pass for 4,000 yards in this new Monken offense, and that's fine. But you look at what he's done, even when he hasn't been injured, when he played 15 games, he still only passed for 3,127 yards. Then after that, it's 2757, 2882, 2242 with those 12-game seasons. I think when you have back-to-back seasons of injury and low production, I don't care what you bring in to change this offense. It's not going to change that much to make you that much better. And what had Lamar so high in the rankings in the first place was his rushing ability. So now if you take that away and you're left with kind of this hodgepodge of pass catchers outside of Mark Andrews, I just don't see it happening. I have Burrow well over Jackson. I have Jackson even below Justin Herbert. So I have him at 6th in the rankings.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna kind of add on to that. One of the things that we talked about, that you look at with Lamar Jackson is what was he like before they brought Greg Roman in? right? Greg Roman designed the scheme to cater to Lamar Jackson, and then all of a sudden, in what, his second and third year, like all of a sudden he was a better passer. He wasn't the most accurate passer. He has a lot of trouble hitting those sideline routes, and and that's a kind of an issue for him. Especially when you're rolling out, you should be looking at the sidelines. You shouldn't be looking at the middle of the field. So I think that's one of the issues. But yeah, so now you're taking a system, you're deviating away from a system that brought out the best in Lamar Jackson, and now all of a sudden you're trying to. I feel like you're trying to turn him into something he might not be. That's one of my definite concerns there. You get him all the weapons that he wants and needs, but is he still going to thrive in that environment?
I'm staying away from him, and I'll say it right now. And I know that throughout the months, and this is where we all have to be careful. And Howard, you and I for years have talked about popcorn headlines. Speaking of popcorn, those headlines that those beat writers want to just put in your face, be like, "Oh, look at what he's doing! Look at what he's doing! See, draft him!" You can't fall into that trap. They're trying to get your attention. They're trying to get you to click with that mouse or touch with that touch screen. That's what they're trying to do with popcorn headlines. And this is a guy that, look, I'm taking a stance on him right now. There are other quarterbacks that are going below him. Britt, you mentioned Justin Herbert. Let's remember this guy was hurt for a good portion of the year last year. I forgive him for that. I'm going to draft him and save up some value. Where's Lamar Jackson go before Joe Burrow? I just don't understand that. And I'm wondering if that's going to change a little bit once we hit August and people start to smarten up.
I don't think I want to live in a world where Lamar Jackson goes before Joe Burrow in drafts.
Because you want
It's
the value.
happening
You
right
want, that's
now.
why. You want the
I
value.
might have to retire. I might have to be out. I don't know. T-Man just said that he signed up with FA now for the year. T-Man, I don't know, man. If I see more Lamar Jackson ahead of Joe Burrow, I might be out, buddy, and I might have to retire. But we'll see what happens for that. All right, so Joe Burrow, a riser. Who else you got, Fensty?
Someone who I know that us at Fantasy Alarm have been talking about nonstop, and that's Miles Sanders. And look, I get it. He's not running behind the most dominant offensive line. I totally understand that. But my thought process is this. Deuce Staley knows that this guy can catch the ball. And if you look at what Carolina has, not a lot of really threatening receiving weapons. Rookie quarterback, let's say he's scrambling. Miles Sanders, you throw him short a few times. If I'm Deuce Staley, I go to Frank Reich, hey, you know how you kind of targeted Jonathan Taylor? Target this guy as well. So I'm expecting him to get close to, let's just say, what he was getting in his first 2 years at Philly, around that 50 target area. I'm totally cool with that. This guy's a good power runner, hands or no hands. I still love this guy where he's going. Last I saw, he's going in that middle of the 6th round area. I think that's a good, and if you, for those that view him as a little bit of a risk, that's where you take a little bit of a risk. If you want to feel risk averse, take a few running backs to start if it makes you feel comfortable, if you want Miles Sanders. For me, I'm looking at him, if I'm thinking for most of my draft plans, let's just say, going with him as my second running back, I'd be totally fine with him as my personal RB2 on my teams.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And unlike the popcorn headlines that you were talking about earlier, we've actually seen hardcore, legit video of them talking, Scott Fitterer and Staley talking to Sanders saying, hey, remember when you caught those 50 passes? Let's do that again. I mean, if we have that on tape, that's likely going to happen. That's not just some smoke that's happening. And then you look at who's behind Sanders. You've got Chuba Hubbard, who did okay, but he still doesn't profile as really a 3-down back. And then Raheem Blackshear, who was a late round draft capital pick, who's probably nothing more than a backup his entire career anyway. So I really like where Sanders is going. The competition in the NFC South isn't exactly all that stout when it comes to their defenses. So they've got a pretty decently easy schedule. And I think with a rookie quarterback that he's going to check down a lot. We saw it even at Alabama when he was facing nobody teams. He still checked it down to Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think that's something that's built into his skill set and will continue to happen here in Carolina.
I think what we're being victimized here as well about is what I was talking about earlier, and that's groupthink. That's wrong. You know, like all of a sudden it's like Miles Sanders goes from the Eagles to the Panthers. So everybody's like, oh, well, the Panthers offensive line isn't as good as the Eagles, and so he's not going to get it. Not to mention the fact that you got a rookie quarterback. So we all know that they're going to stack the box and take away the run game. It's like you can't You can't do that every single year. It's not the same situation each and every time. You have to look at the players, you have to look at the scheme, you have to look at what's going on with the team in general before you make those assessments. And the problem is that we got so many people doing best ball drafts right now who are, yes, they're junkies and degenerates doing, football, best ball in May and June, but they're also really uninformed. Like that's, again, I've hammered this point home over and over again. Ooh, I'm like knocking shit around in my office here. I'm like,
He's serious, guys.
I'm all
He's
worked
really
up right
serious.
now. I'm all worked up. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden, like people just like they get this one bit of information that they think they know, right? And then they take it and they run with it. And then all of a sudden, like the other people who don't know, like actually, like believe it because they just think that somebody's saying it, so it must be true. They got to put it out there. And I think that's one of the things why we're seeing Miles Sanders falling in drafts is that the people who don't understand what the scheme is and what the coaching staff wants to do with him, I think that's, the biggest problem. T-Man wants to know, where does Chuba Hubbard fit in?
That's the main concern right there. Is Miles Sanders a true 3-down back? And to me, I can't look at Miles Sanders like that. I can't look at it that microscopically. If I believe in the guy and we know what he can do, how else can he help us where PPR applies, whether it's full or half? He's going to be catching some passes. And Britt, I saw that video as well. Even before that video, just knowing that who was there, the fact that Deuce Staley, even if Deuce Staley doesn't have a lot of power, he's seen this guy do it and succeed doing it and would be stupid not to say anything. And I'm sure that was part of the sell on Miles Sanders, bringing him to there anyway. I mean, that's something, those are a few dots that I try to connect when I'm looking at Miles Sanders in a new situation, even though he's not running behind the top O-line.
Yeah. And the interesting thing also is that, again, people just assume that Miles Sanders isn't a 3-down back, and they just assume that Chuba Hubbard is going to take away a bunch of stuff. Who's to say that, we don't see like what happened with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison last year in Minnesota? Everybody was like, oh, Madison's going to eat into his work. He's going to eat into his work. Cook took the majority of the snaps. He played the majority of the games. And he got all of the major attention in that offensive scheme. And Madison was a complimentary back to spell Dalvin Cook at various times to keep his legs fresh. And I think that's kind of where Chuba Hubbard kind of sits with Miles Sanders right now.
And again, I think it comes down to run blocking. Chuba Hubbard ranked 104th in run blocking last season. And if we've seen it time and time again, if you can't run or if you can't pass block, you're not going to get the snaps.
Yeah. I like it. All right. Fensty, Joe Burrow, Miles Sanders. Those are a couple of risers that you brought to us here. How about a couple of fallers? Who's dropping down?
So I want to address a player, Britt, that you brought up before, and that's Tyler Lockett, because I don't know why Jackson Smith-Njigba is going before him in drafts. Doesn't make any sense to me. You got DK Metcalf there. You got Lockett there, who's been able to stay healthy. They also drafted, I know how you and I talked about this with Hutch Brown yesterday, who was drafting Jackson Smith-Njigba in the Independence Day Invitational in Sirius XM. But also Zach Charbonnet is there. He's going to be catching passes as well. To me, and we'll talk about another player, same division soon enough, there's just too much going on. And I think for Dynasty, this guy's perfect. To the moon. See you in a couple of years. Britt, I agree with you. I think next year that Lockett, regarding everything, stays the same. No one sent out Metcalf for some reason and the team disconnect and he's sent out. I think next year he could still remain Lockett, the number 2 target. Where does that leave JSN, though, at this point? How many targets can this guy have? Oh, well, he was great slot receiver in college, right? Played 4 games last year. We can't forget about that. Played just 4 games last year. So he was great a couple of years ago. But at the end of the day, how many targets, how much Geno Smith is going to throw, how many targets are truly going to be available to him? And to draft him before Tyler Lockett makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yep. And Seattle runs a ton of 12 personnel. And that leaves the third man out, which in this case is going to be JSN. And then you also look, you brought it up, his numbers in college a couple years ago. During that time, he was also playing with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who were just super elite talents on their own. Were we a little bit hoodwinked into over evaluating his skill set because we got such a small sample size? He had that one great year, and the other two, he's been out due to injury. So that kind of concerns me as well. I don't think that there's any way that Lockett loses out to him. And I agree. It's just everybody gets rookie fever. Everybody is so excited about the new prospect. We see it year after year after year after year. And aside from a handful of receivers, this never pans out. It always takes 2 or 3 years for the majority of wide receivers to actually return.
I 100% agree with everything that Britt just said. However, I do think we were bamboozled and not hoodwinked, but that's a different story.
Fair enough.
How many 3 wide receiver sets is this team going to run?
Exactly.
I mean, I just don't see where this guy fits, and I just don't understand why I'm seeing this guy being drafted in the late 5th, early 6th round. It just makes no sense to me.
It's going to be interesting to see how much Pete Carroll kind of forces Shane Waldron to run the ball.
Right.
Because we know that Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. Shane Waldron, though, he comes from the McVay coaching tree. He came from he was the passing game coordinator for the Rams under McVay. And I think that's one of the reasons why we saw Geno Smith, throw as heavy as we saw him throw. So I don't think we're going to see a ton of 3 receiver sets. I think we'll see some, but yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Smith-Njigba is just going way too high right now.
In Dynasty, enjoy, have fun.
Yep.
See you in 3 years. This guy is so skilled. I love watching the tape on him from 2 years ago, mind you. But at the same time, it's just we're not talking Dynasty here for this particular conversation. And I just don't see it happening this year unless an injury occurs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Fancy, you got another one for us?
So this is one where maybe you can convince me otherwise too. Deebo Samuel. I just wonder, kind of the same thing with Seattle. Are there just too many weapons to go around in San Francisco? Plus, the quarterback situation kind of has me a little bit uneasy, unsettled. And the problem is with Deebo Samuel, okay, what he could do on the ground, right? You got 2 guys there that are perfectly capable of running the ball. What can he do in the air? You've got multiple weapons that they could throw to, including Christian McCaffrey. It just makes me wonder if any extra ways that he could be productive is kind of, in a way, the ceiling's lowered for him going into the year. Plus, with the QB situation, we truly don't know at this point who's going to be starting week 1. We just don't. You've got a couple of names, 3 names. It's like ring around the rosy. So that's part of the problem for me as well. But seeing him drafted at 30, 33, just too much for me when it comes to the draft value. 3rd round, I'm staying away from him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the idiot at the end of the day, and he's an outlier in this offense. Again, kind of like Seattle, just too many weapons, and I do not want to spend a 3rd round pick on him. And I think that rushing upside doesn't exist anymore with Mitchell McCaffrey there.
Nope. The Deebo role has completely turned into the Christian McCaffrey role. And I think that we're all living in the past of that outlier wide receiver 2 season where he just came out of nowhere. But if you look at his stats, the rest of his career, he's not done anything. He definitely hasn't done anything to live up to what wide receiver 16 billing that he's going at right now. And if you look at his average depth of target, I mean, yeah, he's good at gaining yards after the catch, but his average depth of target was 4.2, which ranked 102nd. I don't care how good you are at getting yards after the catch. If you're not going to be able to go downfield and actually exploit defenses, then what do you have to offer? Especially if you're not getting the targets with Brandon Ayuk there. Ayuk is actually, in my opinion, the wide receiver 1 on this team, and he's being highly overlooked. I can't see Deebo doing it. Howard, how about you?
Yeah, I think you guys are both right. We are living in the past with Deebo Samuel. Listen, very talented guy, but that wide back role, it stemmed from the fact that Raheem Mostert got hurt and Jeff Wilson was hurt, and they didn't have anybody else to run the football. So now that they've got McCaffrey in there, and they still have Jordan Mason, and you still have Tyrion Davis-Price, there's no reason to add that in. They said they'll splash it in here and there. They added some incentives into Deebo's contract, so in case they wanted to start doing more stuff like that. But yeah, I think we're all kind of on that same page as far as that goes. And with everybody's love for Ayuk, I might have to. So in the Scott Fishbowl draft, the live draft that I'm hosting this coming weekend, actually Saturday here in San Francisco. We have we're going to do an auction for an autographed Brandon Ayuk jersey. So
Nice.
Ooh.
Well,
just steam that up right now.
What's that?
Just steam that up right now. Let's get it. Drive up the price. Let's go.
Fancy, thank you so much for joining us, man. We appreciate it. I know we kept you on here much longer than we were supposed to, but dude, we love hanging out with you. We love all the work that you do. And yeah, we're looking forward to plenty more ADP videos as they come out. When's the next one coming?
It's going to be dropping on Friday. Ooh. So yep, we're going to bring those out on Fridays. And look, it's again, there's no wrong way to construct your team, but be careful with everything you read out there. And like Britt was saying, you got to watch these rookies a little bit. And that's especially with JSN. I just, when I saw that at first, it just shocked me that he was going before Tyler Lockett. Doesn't make sense.
Does not make sense. All right. Well, Fancy, again, thank you so much. Everybody follow him on Twitter at Fancy Sports. Watch all his videos. Read all his content. He's all over here at fantasyalarm.com, and he's filling in on a ton of shows. I think, Fancy, are you going right into the betting show with Dan Servidino after this?
It'll be James Grande. So
you and Grande.
Yeah, me and Grande. So coming off a decent night with the DFS MLB, which I know you'll be back with him afterwards because you host 25 shows in a 24-hour day. So, man, that's why when they say you retire, when you're saying retirement, that's a popcorn headline right there. I'd click that link and be like, what the?
Yep, ain't happening.
All right. Well, we're going to let Fensty go. We're going to address the talk about Elijah Moore in the chat. And when we come back, well, Britt Flynn's got a wide receiver ADP article out there right now. We're talking ADP tiers for the wide receiver position. Where does Elijah Moore land? We'll tell you right after this message from our friends over at RT Sports.
Kenneth Walker currently has an ADP of 32, and it's not that I don't think he's the most talented, but the situation is not great for him this year. Seahawks just drafted Charbonnet in the second round. They're going to be using Charbonnet just as much as I think Walker with that offense. You don't draft a running back in the second round and not use them. So that's definitely a concern. And Seattle, they're going to have an electric offense, but there are so many mouths to feed. You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN, and Charbonnet, and then Walker. So, I mean, those are 5 elite players that all need to get fed in that offense. So the volume is definitely a concern for me there. Again, I got him in the Champs League at 45, which that was just too far for him to drop in value-wise, which is why I took him. But currently being drafted at an ADP of 32, it's just too early for me.
I agree with that. And sometimes players are better in different formats. And I think all those
Absolutely.
Seahawks, I feel better in a best ball format.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you just don't know when those big games are going to hit. They're going to hit. You just don't know when they
Yeah, if you're in a standard league, you want more of a safer play, and you don't want those boom or bust plays.
All right, I'm gonna talk about another player that is on a new team as a bust, and I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. I think a move to New York is going to be a positive for Rodgers, getting a chance to play with a little better talent around him offensively, especially at receiver, than he has the past few years with Green Bay. But you just can't ignore last year. Rodgers was just 13th overall in fantasy quarterback scoring. He had just 2 games all season with 20-plus fantasy points. That's a really low number. He threw for less than 3,700 yards, failed to reach 30 total touchdowns on the season, had just 1 3-touchdown game all season. I just don't think he's the same player as past years. I know he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, want to prove everybody wrong, but I just think with all the good QBs out there in fantasy land this year, I'm avoiding Rodgers. I just don't think he's worth the risk, in my opinion.
Well, I don't even know what's
We're bringing in some rock and roll.
Well,
I love it.
America.
It is great. I was like, okay, some guitar riffs. Like, let's get some Eagles. Let's get some mullets. Like, let's go.
Some mullets. Please, please, please. More mullets in this world. That's Is that what's necessary? Welcome back, everybody. It's Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm Howard Bender, Britt Flynn by my side. The Twitter handles are right here. Give everybody a follow. Hit us up in chat if you like. We're broadcasting here live on Fantasy Alarm's YouTube page, the Better Sports Network's YouTube page, and a variety of social media platforms out there, Twitter, Facebook. We might even be on Twitch. I don't know. I'm too old to even know what Twitch is, but we could very well be there at that point. Britt, you're in like a gaming chair right there. So, I mean, you obviously know what Twitch. Are you a gamer?
No, I'm not. My sister is. This is
wow.
actually Seller's chair because he plays League of Legends. And so I just commandeered his chair for my office whenever I do shows.
Ah, well, there you go. All right. Well, you need a nice comfy chair. You need something with good lower back support because, I mean, let's face it, the content that you're pumping out right now over at fantasyalarm.com, fast, furious, and absolutely fierce. 100%. The level of research, the depths that you go, everything that you put out is absolutely stellar. 100% stellar. So I want to focus on one of your articles here, and that was your wide receiver tiers article that you put out, and it's wide receiver ADP tiers. So you take the lead on this one here. Throw to me when you want to hear my commentary, if you even want to hear my commentary. But I mean, I'm happy to go through these tiers and see if there's anybody else who belongs in that tier, or did you add somebody who shouldn't have been. I can be that guy for you.
Yeah, so before I get into these tiers, I'm going to tell T-Man that Elijah Moore is not in this article because it is based on ADP, and I only did the top 38. He falls a little bit outside of that, but there is another article over in the draft guide, and now that you're a member of the family with the All-Pro package, go check out the wide receiver breakout article, and I've got some words about Elijah Moore in there. But back to this article.
She didn't have my guy in there either, T-Man. We'll talk about that one in a little bit.
I could have written forever on this subject, but I decided for the sake of brevity and my fingers that it was only going to be the first 38 off the board. It's not that I'm shunning anybody. It's based on ADP right now, the aggregate ADP that you can find over at fantasyalarm.com. So I kind of broke it down into the elite all everything tier, the elite but older all everything tier, the proven top 10 wide receiver ones with overall wide receiver one upside, potential proven top 12 upside, the other guys who are the wide receiver twos on their team with potential fantasy wide receiver one upside, then the hills and valleys tier, which we'll get to that in a little bit, old faces in new places or with a new quarterback, potential breakouts, the undervalued, the will they or won't they tier, and then a little bonus with the 37 and 38 pick. But I want to ask you from here, what tier? Oh gosh, all my notes just moved. So there's some interesting tier movements and breaks from years past. What's kind of the most interesting and enticing tier for you? Since we don't want to give away everybody who's in these tiers, but what's the most enticing tier for you? And with how the board is falling, what tier do you think has the most pitfalls?
Ooh, all right. Let's see. First of all, T-Man, if you're looking for some bling, email support at fantasyalarm.com and ask our customer service representative if you can get yourself like a T-shirt or something like that. I think you almost kind of deserve it, but I'll leave that up to our customer service rep to make that decision. Which tier did I think was going to be that I liked the most? I think it was I think it's the will they or won't they tier. I think that's the one that I found to be incredibly intriguing. It's further down. You're looking at wide receivers 31 through 36 here. And what I love about this is because there are, and I can answer each one right now. Like Michael Pittman won't, Deontay Johnson will, Mike Evans won't. So what I love about this one here, Treylon Burks will. So what I love about this is that these guys are all grouped together. But when you're sitting there and you're like, trying to figure out if you need to pick a wide receiver, and this is the crew that you're at, there are the decisions that you have to make. Do I believe in this player? Do I believe in the system in which they are in? And and when you're looking at a guy like Deontay Johnson or Treylon Burks, I mean, I'll easily take these guys at this ADP because I think that, again, I believe that they're both undervalued assets where they're going right now. I think that, if I'm looking at even just the undervalued tier, which is right above them, I might look to take these guys like in a very similar spot, depending on if I want to diversify my roster a little bit, like if I'm heavy on Christian Kirk and Tyler Lockett. If I'm going to bypass one of those guys, I'm going to grab me, maybe like a Deontay Johnson, who I think kind of, should be in this undervalued tier, a step up. So that's the tier that I really dig. Then what was your other question? What was the other one that you wanted to know?
Which one do you think is full of the most pitfalls?
Oh, the most pitfalls.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with you might hate me on this. Can I combine tiers?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I say old faces in new places plus potential breakouts?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's again the ADP. That's kind of where it falls. And I think that it's really important to not only read this article and take away information from this, but go in and formulate your own tiers based on your opinion and what you think that these players are going to do for you. Um, don't just go by what we say, because if we can teach you how to evaluate these players on your own, you're going to be a better player in the future when it comes down to it. But I want to hear why you combine these tiers and why you think it's full of pitfalls.
Well, I mean, I think that it's pretty simple as far as pitfalls go. Calvin Ridley hasn't played in 2 years. DeAndre Hopkins, where's he gonna go? DJ Moore, maybe with Justin
Yeah.
Fields, we have to kind of wait and see. I think Terry McLaurin is, outstanding. I love him, and I'm not going to say that he's QB proof, like we used to say about DeAndre Hopkins, but I love McLaurin. I think that he's just a super talented guy, and I think Sam Howell's going to be able to get him the ball. So I think you're looking at a couple of pitfalls in there, but for the same token, the potential breakouts, I think both Drake London and Christian Watson could be pitfalls. You've already talked about Christian Watson, how much you think he's a pitfall here. Drake London, I love the talent, but it's going to be Desmond Ridder. It's going to be very interesting to see how this offense develops. Not to mention the fact that in a scheme where that Arthur Smith just wants to run the ball like a maniac, like how many targets per game is Drake London kind of looking at there? So I feel like those two tiers, they have like one guy who I really, really love, and I'll probably take him if that's where I'm at. But I think that they both have a significant number of pitfalls.
Yep. And that's why it's so important to know your tiers, because these guys are all going at very similar ADPs. And if you just draft by ADP, if one of these guys who is a pitfall is next on the board and you're like, well, he's next in ADP, he must be the next best, I'm going to take him, you're really going to harm your team. And that's why it's so important to split these players out into tiers as they're falling. I'm going to go into the one that I think has the most potential. And that's the undervalued tier for me, because in this tier, we've got a lot of veterans who didn't really have a changing situation, or who still have a lot of upside, like Chris Godwin, for one, is in this tier. Yes, he did have a change at quarterback, but he's still that slot guy. And we talked about it earlier. He's going to be the guy out of the slot who's going to take these passes, these short dump offs from Baker Mayfield. And even if the quarterback play kind of sucks, he's still going to get targets and he's going to be valuable in PPR. All of these guys in this tier finished as wide receiver 2s or better, aside from one person. And they're going in the late 20s, early 30s. So I really like this tier here. The one that worries me is the hills and valleys tier. We've got kind of some older guys in here, some guys like Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, some guys who have extra target competition going in there. and they seem to have more of a high risk than a ceiling at this value, going in the mid to late teens. And so I question their upside there, and I'm always going for upside. But that's why you use our dynamic tiers. And that's why you decide how you're going to construct your roster. If you're looking for someone safe with a floor, take that guy there. If you're looking for somebody with a big ceiling, like I am for the most part, take somebody there. And that's where you'll find all of these split up in our dynamic tier rankings over in the draft guide. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide, and you can purchase it today for $26.99. And it's got all this information in it. And you've got more articles like these, like mine, coming out tomorrow. Shameless self-promotion. But I'm going to ask you, if is there somebody in particular after listening to Fancy talk about the risers and fallers, if you think that there's somebody in this article who will switch tiers for better or worse as the ADP continues to change throughout the season?
Who do I think is good? Well, I kind of feel like I gave you that answer already when I think that, to me, I think that we could see Deontay Johnson and Treylon Burks jump into the undervalued tier. And you know what? I'll tell you what, it's a good conversation here in the chat. Actually, right about that, T-Man says, why is everyone questioning the prospective production of Christian Watson, but Treylon Burks is touted with Tannehill and Willis at QB? What's the comparative difference? I'll let you answer that one first, and then I'll give my thoughts on it. But, I think it comes down to experience versus no experience.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And also, it seems like Burks can play a more versatile role all over the field. He did it at Arkansas. He produced against a high level of competition. Christian Watson, on the other hand, just seems to be the deep outside guy, and he played at North Dakota State. It doesn't seem like he has a very developed route tree. And so that, in addition to the inexperience of Jordan Love, is why I'm questioning him, not just because I have a Treylon Burks ball behind me, and he's my favorite.
Is that a Treylon Burks ball right behind you?
Yeah, it's a signed Burks ball.
Where is my Razorbacks hat, for crying out loud? I think you better bring me one at the expo. I'll tell you that.
Well, the one that I ordered for you was too redneck for you, you said. So I canceled the order. I've got to find one that's just redneck enough, but not too redneck.
For those who want to know, it had actually on the back of a hat here, if I turned it around, it had hair just coming down. And I was like, really? This hat comes with its own mullet. That's absolutely fantastic.
Mullets are in style. Hey, they're back, baby.
Hey, are they though? Are they?
All the young kids are. Yeah.
But I agree with everything that you're saying here. As far as, I think the route tree is something that I think gets overlooked a ton with what it's going on. You're also talking about the competition for targets. You've got Romeo Doubs there. You know that Jordan Love's going to try and lean on the tight ends a little bit more as well. And I think that's, whereas, Burks, we already know that Tannehill can throw the ball downfield. He's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's still a solid QB. And Malik Willis is only going to be there if Tannehill gets hurt again. Is Tannehill going to get hurt again?
It may not even be him. It may be Levis.
It could be Levis, who's got a gun also. And can find him downfield. I think it all really, I think it stems down to a lot of uncertainty about Jordan Love. I think that's kind of where it comes from. All right. So I said, I think Deontay Johnson and Treylon Burks can move up to the undervalued tier. What about you? Where do you think, who's a player? Cause you were organizing these tiers. And you've got the top 38 guys. So who out of this group here, who do you think jumps into a tier, or I guess drops the tier for that matter?
Yeah, I think the old faces and new places, DeAndre Hopkins is included in that one. As soon as he signs somewhere, his ADP is going to skyrocket. I don't care where he lands. He's still one of the most dominant wide receivers in this entire league. We saw him produce with Colt McCoy and whoever the other backup was. Was it Blaine Gabbert last year after Colt McCoy? I can't even remember.
But either way,
might as well be. We still saw him produce with a third string quarterback. So it's not going to matter where he lands. This guy is a real big value right now, and he's going to jump as soon as he signs. But again, that's the benefit of a living draft guide. You're not stuck with just this information that I put out a couple weeks ago. We're going to change it. As soon as the ADP changes and as soon as he signs, we're going to update this. So you're going to have the most current information for your drafts.
Oh, so maybe perhaps Elijah Moore, who T-Man likes, or oh, I don't know, maybe Cortland Sutton kind of makes an appearance in this article. Or are you gonna start doing tiers for like further down the list?
I think that I can do a little bit of both, actually. I think I'm going to leave the list as it is, but then I'm going to place individual updates that are date stamped with the new movement and
Oh,
then
I
just
like that.
update that. That way nothing's changed and nobody feels hoodwinked or bamboozled that like, oh, I read this first and now it's different. No, I want the original information to remain, but I'm just going to add little addendums to it. But I think Cortland Sutton could move up there. Right now, he's just outside, I think, of that top 38. I think everybody just feels a little bit hurt by him after what happened last year. And they saw Jerry Jeudy produce in that piss poor offense where he didn't. But they're not taking into account that Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi are there and are going to turn this offense around. I'm a little gun shy on him because I am one of the people who got burned on him last year.
Mhm.
But as we see more and more out of training camp and as we see what this offense is doing, I can definitely see him creeping up in there. He's only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots out. And right behind him is Elijah Moore, T-Man. So, yeah, they could definitely make their way up there. So just keep your eyes peeled.
What do we think about? Because and I'll say it, man. I love Cortland Sutton, and because Cortland Sutton's the X receiver in Denver, and the system that Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi install, it forces targets to the X receiver. Michael Thomas got that. Even when they had Jimmy Graham, Michael Thomas was still seeing the dominant share of targets. In that system. When Lombardi went to the Chargers, Mike Williams just kept getting forced targets when he was healthy. Forced targets over and over again. Yes, Justin Herbert still leaned a little bit on Keenan Allen because of the rapport that they had. But, I didn't see like Gerald Everett's target share jumping up to a point where it was, crazy. So it's the X receiver. And to me, that's Cortland Sutton in this Denver offense. So, that's why, I'm in on that. Thoughts on our good friend. Oh, here we go. T-Man says Tim Patrick could be the man in Denver this year. All right. You know what? Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton? You tell me, Britt, who do you like more?
See, that's one of those popcorn headlines that you heard somebody in training camp say this, who then heard somebody in training camp say this. And it's that article that said Tim Patrick is the best football player in the building, in the wide receiver room. He hasn't been healthy. I don't really see him taking over that Sutton role. I can see him taking over Marvin Mims' role and keeping him out of the lineup. But if you look at the targets that Sutton got last year, he actually got more targets than Jerry Jeudy, even in the Nathaniel Hackett system. The problem was that Wilson was rushed and just making errant throws and bad decisions downfield that caused those passes to get intercepted. If they can clean that up, I think that Sutton could be the guy. I'm definitely not placing everything in on Tim Patrick at this moment. But again, it's early. We don't know. We've got to wait till training camp. We've got to see what happens. And this is why it's important to draft later because, maybe it could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thoughts on Elijah Moore? Like, could he jump up? Let's say, because I know that there was a rumor of DeAndre Hopkins to Cleveland, but I think all the Cleveland speculation kind of, pushed that aside. So you've got Amari Cooper, you've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They bring in Elijah Moore. We know what the offense is. We know what Deshaun Watson is or should be about. I don't say we know, but he should be about on the field. Do you see Elijah Moore being somebody who, like, we could turn into like as an undervalued guy who could really pop this year?
So he is in my wide receiver breakout article. Spoiler alert, everybody out there. But I really do believe that he can be that guy. I think the only reason that he wasn't when he was with the Jets was because of the revolving doors of quarterbacks and just terrible quarterback play. and the fact that the coaching staff had something against him. I don't really understand why they did not utilize him, because when he was healthy, even during his rookie season, we talked earlier, we don't normally see rookies break out this way. In between weeks 8 and 12, he was one of the top receivers in the entire league. Then he got hurt. Then he had bad quarterback play, whatever. Now that he's with Deshaun Watson, he's probably going to work primarily out of the slot. They've already developed a connection in OTAs. Apparently, he's scorching all the D-backs with his separation, his speed. He's another good route runner. We already know Amari Cooper is a good route runner, but so is Elijah Moore. That's what made him a second-round pick. I think that he could be a huge factor in this. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, falls to the wide receiver 3. I think, and even Njoku, I think, is going to, unfortunately, I know you love Njoku, but I think he's going to lose some targets as well. I think it's going to be Cooper and Moore. And with Kareem Hunt there, not working out of the backfield, eating up targets either, I can see some of those targets going to Moore. So I really, really like him.
Damn.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not gonna argue against it. This is definitely going to be one of those I need to see it kind of a situation. But I think that that's a fantastic, kind of assessment about it. We know that Amari Cooper is going to be the number one target. We know that. So if Elijah Moore can genuinely move up to be that's why, I love Njoku as a player, but I was in on Njoku last year because he was the number 2 targeted receiving threat on that team. They didn't have, Peoples-Jones wasn't ready for it. Who they have? Rashad Higgins or, whatever nonsense they still had at wide receiver. So that's why I like Njoku. You guys have heard Coop and I talking tight ends on the regular basis, right? Chigakonkwo. Why do we love Chigakonkwo so much? Because Treylon Burks is the number 1 receiving target on that team. Okonkwo's number 2. Like, you're not going to tell me that, Nick Westbrook-Akine or any of these other lame duck wideouts that they have over there are going to see more targets than a guy who is, who has the athleticism and the route running ability and the hands that Okonkwo has. So that's why I was in on Njoku last year, because great hands, good solid route runner, was very relied upon as the number 2 target. But I like this whole Elijah Moore could be that number 2 in that offense, because listen, for where he's going ADP wise, I love me a good wide receiver 2 like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's what they were looking for with David Bell last year, but he just didn't quite pan out. And now he was a slot receiver. They specifically made a trade for another slot receiver because Bell wasn't working out. Like, right. They went out and actively got more. So I think that they really believe in what he can do, and he's already showing it. So what else we got going on in the chat? I'm seeing lots of fireworks and other situations. I've lost track of where we are in the chat.
Right. I think Sellers is now talking Jerry Jeudy. T-Man's talking fireworks. Frankel and Sellers are now agreeing with each other. This could, like, worlds colliding, and I think everything, the fantasy football universe could implode right now.
I think Sellers is also trying to get me to do more work. He said I need to do a late round wide receiver article for the draft guide as well. So thanks for that, honey.
Yes, actually, Sellers, thank you for that. 100%. So, Britt, we're almost out of time here, but you've already you talked about what you've got coming out. What else do you have coming out? What should we be paying attention to from you this week?
Yeah, we've got the training camp article coming out tomorrow early on. It's almost completely ready. Lots and lots of matchup battles. It's going to be a very long read, but very, very worth it and in depth. So I hope that you guys check it out.
Absolutely. Check it out. We also have Coop and I will be on the Quick Outs podcast tomorrow. This show, we're going to run it straight through. It's going to be at 2:00 tomorrow, 2:00 on Thursday. We're back to 1:00 for another 2-hour episode on Friday as well. Britt's got lightning round as well on Thursday. We're all over the place. So stay here with Fantasy Alarm, Better Sports Network. For Britt Flynn, shout out to our producer, Ernie Acosta. I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm's Alarm Fantasy Football on Better Sports Network. Catch you next time.